My fiancé ditched me a few months before our wedding because his mother decided I wasn't good enough. You're nothing without my son. He could do much better, she sneered. I laughed and walked out. Now she rings me 10 times a day, crying and begging me to take back her broke, miserable boy. I can hardly believe I'm writing this. 90 days ago, I was planning what should have been the happiest day of my life with Brett, my partner of 3 years. Today, I'm in my best friend's spare room, scrolling rental sites and trying to understand how it fell apart. Brett and I met in 2021. Within half a year, we were inseparable. After 18 months, we moved in. When I first met his parents, his dad, Walt, was pleasant if quiet. His mom, Susan, spent dinner interrogating me about my family and connections, wearing a tight smile that never touched her eyes. I mentioned my dad's construction job and my mom's work as a school aide. I watched Susan's face tighten before she smoothed it over. Later, Brett waved it off, saying she was protective and old-fashioned. He told me her family prized connections, but he didn't. I believed him. Love can make you naive. When Brett proposed last year during a cozy weekend at a sweet little upstate BB, I was thrilled. We agreed on a mid-size wedding, nothing fancy, since we were saving for a house. The trouble started almost the moment we announced our engagement. Susan insisted on weighing in on every detail. At first, it seemed helpful. She had vendor hookups and offered coordination since I worked long hours, but it quickly turned into a takeover. My dream venue was too shabby. The menu I wanted was not what our family serves. The dress I adored was a bit cheap, don't you think? Brett's stance was that it was easier to appease her than fight. I caved on a few things to keep the peace, but it felt like death by 1,000 cuts. With each decision yanked away, the excitement faded until planning felt like drudgery. The big shift came at a dinner at their place a few months before the wedding. Susan invited her friends Rita and Angela. Halfway through, I realized I was being paraded for inspection. They traded looks whenever I spoke. Rita even asked where I summered as a kid. I laughed, assuming she was kidding, then said we camped at the state park or visited my grandma in Ohio. Dead silence. Afterward, Susan cornered me in the kitchen as I was tidying up. She started by casually bringing up Brett's ex, Melissa Old Money, Hampton's house, all that. Then she said Brett was meant for great things and hoped I wouldn't hold him back. It felt like a slap. When I asked what she meant, she dropped the act. I might be nice, but I wasn't from the right background. My lack of polish would embarrass him in important circles. I wouldn't know how to host or network properly. I was stunned. When I finally told her she was being unbelievably rude, she gave a patronizing little laugh and said my defensiveness proved her point. Brett needs someone who matches his potential, not someone who drags him down. I walked out and told Brett we had to go. Shaking in the car, I relayed everything. I expected anger on my behalf. Instead, he went quiet. She didn't mean it like that. She was thinking of our future. Maybe I misread her tone. We had our first major fight. He admitted she'd been questioning our compatibility for months and had been planting doubts about whether I fit into his vision of the future. Worse, he'd been listening. Over the next 2 weeks, things unraveled. He stayed late at work and at home, raised new concerns. Our different upbringings, potential parenting clashes, if I'd fit at his company events. Then came another dinner invite, apparently to clear the air. Brett begged me to go, swearing she wanted to apologize. I went. There was no apology. Susan spent the evening lacing in digs about my outfit, table manners, even my voice. When Brett stepped out for a call, she leaned in and, ice cold, told me I was nothing without her son, that he could do far better, and that I should walk away before I ruined his life with my ordinariness. When I teared up, she rolled her eyes and said my emotional display proved her point. Brett returned as I was grabbing my things. Susan put on a concerned mask and claimed I'd overreacted to gentle advice. I was done. In the car, I told Brett exactly what happened and said he had to choose. Cut contact with his mother until she could show basic respect, or the wedding was off. I thought he'd finally defend me. He didn't. He said maybe she was right, maybe we were rushing, maybe we really were from 2 different worlds. The man who swore he didn't care about status was suddenly parroting classist nonsense. I took off my ring, set it on the dashboard, and asked him to drop me at Angela's instead of going home. He didn't try to stop me. The next day, while he was at work, I packed most of my things, left my key, and a note about picking up the rest later. I blocked his mother immediately, left Brett unblocked in case he came to his senses. A few days later, he texted, saying he was confused and needed time. I replied there was nothing to mull over. Either we build a life with love and respect, or we don't. He suggested we take a break until after his big project and then revisit. That told me everything. 3 years together, and he wouldn't even end it cleanly, just wanted me on standby. I told him not to contact me. Mutual friends say he's spinning it as a mutual decision because our goals changed. I've focused on rebuilding. Yesterday, Susan somehow got my new number and left a sniffly voicemail asking to talk about Brett. I deleted it. Whatever chaos is happening in their perfect world isn't mine to fix. This is long, but I needed to say it. The wedding would have been next weekend. Instead, I booked myself a solo beach Airbnb. Not the honeymoon I pictured, but maybe the reset I need. First update. Thank you for all the love on my original post. The first month post-breakup was a haze. I crashed on Angela's pullout longer than planned. She's a saint. I woke up reaching for Brett, then remembered. I stopped eating and dropped 10 pounds without trying. Angela left protein bars on the coffee table so I wouldn't forget. I spent days staring at listings without dialing a single number. Moving felt so final. After 3 weeks, Angela gently nudged me to see a place in her friend's building. It was simple. Small one-bedroom, tiny kitchen, within budget, 15 minutes from work. I signed that day. Moving in was another mountain. Most of my furniture stayed at Brett's because I couldn't face coordinating movers in pieces. Angela and her boyfriend did an IKEA run with me. Bed, small couch, a dining table that doubles as a desk. The place stayed bare for weeks. I didn't have the energy to nest. Work became my lifeline. I went in early, stayed late, took extra projects to avoid the quiet. My lead noticed and gave me more to own cross-team coordination, training a new hire. It felt good to be useful. 2 months in, I ran into Nick, Brett's brother, at the grocery store. I nearly hid behind the cereal, but he saw me first. He apologized for what happened and said he'd argued with his mom about how she treated me. Awkward, but validating. He hinted Brett wasn't doing well. I thanked him and kept it short. I wasn't ready to be dragged back into their orbit. A week later, my college roommate dragged me to a party. That's where I met Matt, her cousin, in from out of town. We ended up chatting in the same circle. Then he asked for my number. I surprised myself by saying yes. Coffee on a Sunday was our first date, easy and low stakes. For the first time in months, I went hours without thinking about Brett. Matt's in a totally different field, lives simply, and has a wonderfully normal family that doesn't care about the right connections. I gave him the short version of the breakup. He listened, no fixing, no cliches. Around month 3, my company reorged and opened a role with bigger scope. My extra effort hadn't gone unnoticed. My manager urged me to apply, warning it'd be more hours and stress. I almost passed, confidence was shaky, but applied anyway. 3 interviews, a late-night presentation, a final with execs. I didn't think I'd get it. 2 weeks later, I did, plus a solid raise. Not life-changing, but enough to stop sweating rent and rebuild my emergency fund. While shopping for work clothes, I bumped into Rita, Susan's gossip buddy. She was sugary sweet, then, casually shared, Brett had been fired. The big project he'd cited for our break imploded. Missed deadlines, bad management. She watched my face for a reaction. I stayed neutral. She added that Melissa briefly got back with him, then bailed. "Sounds like you dodged a bullet," she said. Later that week, I saw Susan at a restaurant while dining with Matt. She actually came over, complimented me, asked about my new job. How did she know? Smiled tight when she realized Matt was my date, then chirped that, "Everyone misses you." I gave a non-answer. The weirdness continued. Angela forwarded me a Facebook message from Brett, fishing for info about me. Through friends, I learned he'd moved back in with his parents after losing his job. Susan's dream for him was unraveling. I focused on my life. Matt helped me make the apartment feel like mine, bookshelves one weekend, art the next. The new role was demanding but gratifying. Some nights I crashed, doubting myself, but overall I was proud. My team respected me, and I started to believe I'd earned it. Then, last Friday, a voicemail came from an unknown number. I almost deleted it. It was Susan's voice, thick with tears, saying Brett wasn't okay. She'd made a terrible mistake, and she'd do anything to fix things between us. 6 months ago, she told me I was nothing. Now she was begging. I didn't call back. I went to Matt's, but the message stuck in my head. He asked what would genuinely bring me peace. This morning, 3 more missed calls from Susan, and a text from a new number, likely Brett's. I haven't opened it. Do I respond at all? Last update. After 3 days of debate, I texted Brett's new number. What's going on? 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Susan, using his phone since I'd blocked her. I nearly ignored it, but picked up. Mistake number 1. Gone was the icy queen. Her voice shook. She asked how I was, said I looked great at the restaurant, creepy, then delivered the strangest apology I've ever heard. She'd treated me badly, judged me on shallow things, and regretted pushing me away. She said Brett had been adrift since we split, spiraled after the job loss, drank too much, made dumb money choices. When I asked why she was telling me this, she said I could help, that I steadied him, that he needs someone responsible like you. From not good enough to exactly what he needs when the house is on fire wild. I said I was sorry he was struggling, but we were done. I mentioned I was seeing someone. She brushed it off as a rebound and asked to meet for coffee. Against my better judgment and Matt's worried look, I agreed, thinking it might give me closure and, maybe, to see just how far she'd fallen to beg the woman she'd once demeaned. At the cafe, she looked tired and unpolished hair yanked back, barely any makeup. She'd ordered my favorite drink, which was both kind and unnerving. For an hour, she detailed Brett's crash, lifestyle without income, drained savings, a bad friend's startup bet, 2 maxed cards, now back in his childhood room, sleeping late and barely applying. I expected her to ask me to take him back. Instead, she worked angles. He was his best with you. You motivate him. He listens to you. When I reminded her she'd called me unworthy, she teared up and said she'd protected him from the wrong things, that she should have valued my steadiness over Melissa's pedigree. Funny how boring becomes reliable when the bills hit. I left feeling oddly empty, more pity than triumph, still a little angry. I said I'd think about speaking to Brett, no promises. It should have ended there. It didn't. The next day, calls. Then more. Follow-ups. Brett asked about you. Is your company hiring? I stopped answering. Voicemails got frantic. His dad might cut him off. Family friends are asking questions. She even mentioned making amends with my parents. Nick texted to apologize for his mom. He said Brett's spiral was worse than they'd let on. Heavy drinking hurt his work. Susan partly blames herself for driving me away, sees that as the start of his decline. But Nick stressed Brett is responsible for Brett, and I shouldn't be guilted into fixing him. I appreciated that. Meanwhile, Matt and I were getting serious talking about moving in when his lease ends. The calm of our relationship versus Brett's family chaos was stark. 2 weeks after coffee, Susan escalated. She waited for me in my office parking lot with Brett's resume, asking for a referral. I told her that was inappropriate and to stop contacting me. She cried in front of my coworkers. I guided her to a bench and calmly restated boundaries. I can't help her or Brett. We're over. Respect my space. A few days later, Brett finally texted. A long apology for his mother, and for failing me, admitting he made a massive mistake listening to her and that he missed me every day. Reading it, I felt nothing but tired relief. I showed Matt and didn't reply immediately. Susan called the next morning to ask if I'd seen his message. I told her inserting herself was inappropriate. She snapped that she was just trying to help. That's when I drew a hard line. I'm blocking you. Contact me at work again, and I'll file a harassment report. Your adult son must handle his own life. And, for good measure, I said maybe if she'd taught him to value character over status, he wouldn't be here. That night, I replied to Brett, I forgive you. Holding a grudge helps no one. But there's no us anymore. I've moved on. You need to as well. Please get professional help for the drinking and gambling, and stop letting your mother fight your battles. I wished him well, and asked him not to contact me again. Then I blocked them both. It felt like finally closing a door that had been stuck open. The next day, an Instagram DM from a fresh Susan account accused me of being heartless, throwing away years of history out of pride. Blocked. Then came new emails, even a handwritten letter, each more desperate. The last straw. A knock at my door during dinner with Matt. Brett stood there, rumpled and tipsy. Susan hovered behind. I stepped into the hall, door mostly shut. He tried to reminisce and apologize. She insisted we were good together. I told them that showing up unannounced crossed a major boundary, and that I meant what I said. Brett surprised me by turning to his mother. This is why he hadn't wanted to come. He'd told her it would make things worse. He apologized to me, not for breaking up, but for failing to protect me from her then and now. It's been 5 days of silence. Nick texted to say he's taking Brett to his first GA meeting. I thanked him and asked for no updates. Matt and I have a weekend trip planned. I've changed my email and alerted my manager about unwanted visitors. Life is moving forward, and honestly, it's better than I imagined a year ago when I was planning a wedding to the wrong man. I don't know if I'll ever need to update again,